Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Suranjali Seal, and like I always say, if you are somebody that loves literature and is all about literature, then this is the channel for you. In our video today, we're going to discuss the summary of Canto 1 from book 1 of the Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. Now, because it's a very lengthy text, we have to cover a lot of allegorical references, and the understanding of symbols are very important as well. So therefore, we're going to deal with Canto 1 book 1 in this video, and we're going to look at it as crisply, as shortly, and as fast as possible, because there's a lot of cantos and a lot of books to cover as well. So therefore, without any further ado, let's get right into it. So there is another video that I had made and it deals with the life and works of Edmund Spenser. I had uploaded it earlier. We are covering this series, right? We're covering the ages of the history of English literature, in the history of English literature, and I have started with the age of Elizabeth. So in the age of Elizabeth, I had covered the writers in my previous videos, and one of them was Edmund Spenser. Now in Edmund Spenser, in that video which I had covered on his life and his works, I have covered considerable amount of information and the basics that you need to know about his life and his works, and I have also mentioned important information regarding the Faerie Queene, regarding the date of its publication, its name, what inspired him, which book was it modeled upon, and etc. Okay, so if you look at the screen, then you will know what I have covered in the other video, so make sure that you go and check that out, because those are the basics. So the Faerie Queene, in the video of Edmund Spenser, I have covered the following: the name, written by, published, when was it published, how many sets were published, everything, total plan and how much did he actually complete, which work was it modeled upon, what was the purpose, and who did he relate its purpose to, meaning of an allegory, what do we mean by an allegory with examples, the Spenserian stanza. So everything, because for the Faerie Queene, he invented the Spenserian stanza and made use of it for the first time in the Faerie Queene. So therefore, you have to understand what the Spenserian stanza is. So these are the important details that I have covered in that other video, so make sure you check it out. In this video now, we're going to dive deep right into the summary, so let's get right into it. So let's look at the characters in book 1, Canto 1, so that we understand the story when we read it, okay? So the Red Cross Knight is the first character. Now, who is he? He is the protagonist of book 1, okay? And why is he called so? Why is he called the Red Cross Knight? It is because he bears the cross on his armor and on his shield. He bears the cross and it's red in color. Now the cross is of course the symbol of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and the red color symbolizes the blood during this crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So therefore it is a red cross, and therefore he derives his name from that symbol. So he's called the Red Cross Knight. So this is symbol, okay? This is the simple understanding as per his character. But what is the allegory? Allegorically, the Red Cross Knight is the Knight of Holiness. He stands for holiness. Now we will understand this concept better once we know who is Una. Una, who is she? She is the daughter of a king whose kingdom has been attacked. It has been ravaged by a dragon, okay? And now her own life is in danger from that dragon. So she goes to Queen Gloriana. Who is Queen Gloriana? She is the queen of fairyland. And symbolically, Queen Gloriana, Edmund Spenser wanted to symbolize Queen Elizabeth I herself through Queen Gloriana's character, okay? So Queen Gloriana, Una goes to Queen Gloriana and asks for her help, that please help me, my kingdom is in danger and my life is in danger. And so what Queen Gloriana does is that she assigns the Red Cross Knight to go and help Una to save her kingdom from that dragon, and Red Cross Knight willingly accepts it, okay? So this is the story about Una. What is the allegory? Allegory over here is that Una represents truth, okay? Now, why is it important? Why is holiness and truth important? I'll just give you an example. Imagine I say that I'm a very holy person, okay? Every Sunday I go to church, I pray, I believe in the tenets of Jesus Christ. From Monday, I do everything opposite. I yell at people. I don't really take into consideration the poor people. I don't work for them. I don't help them. I walk with pride. I do all wrong sorts of things. But on Sunday, I come back and then again I'm in church. Okay. So what am I doing? Am I living via the tenets of Jesus Christ? Am I following the tenets of Jesus Christ? No, right? I might claim to be holy, but I don't have true faith. In the face of danger, I don't remember Jesus Christ. Whenever I am in my day-to-day life, I don't follow his tenets. Is that true faith? It's not. So you have holiness. In order to be truly holy, you need to have true faith. Okay. This is what is symbolized by Una and the Red Cross Knight. The Red Cross Knight is the Knight of holiness. He symbolizes holiness. And holiness is in the company of true faith. When both of them are together, they can devour any danger. When you keep them separate, you will see that time and again, even in the Faerie Queene, there are many evil doers that come and try to corrupt the Red Cross Knight. They come and try to separate Una and Red Cross Knight all the time. All the evil doers like Error, like Archimago, they try to separate them and they try to manipulate the Red Cross Knight. Okay, so what they're trying to do, they're going to corrupt holiness. Okay, and in the absence of true faith, you will see that problems do crop up. Therefore, the Red Cross Knight and Una need to stay together. For a Christian to be truly holy, one has to have true faith. This is like an understanding. For the purpose of the Faerie Queene, this is what I'm saying. Okay, it's just for the purpose of this text. So this is what is meant. The Red Cross Knight and Una need to stay together. So now we come to the dwarf. Who is the dwarf? Now you have holiness, you have true faith. Both of them are on this adventure together. What is missing? Blind faith you cannot have. You need to have a sense, right? You have to have common sense. So the dwarf symbolizes common sense and he is lagging behind. He is a squire who accompanies the Red Cross Knight on this journey and he's lagging behind. He's coming slowly he's walking. So his presence is there. You have faith, you have holiness, and then you have common sense. So all of these three things need to be together in a person. You understand? This is the symbolism. This is what Spenser's symbolism is about. Okay, so the allegory over here, it centers around this. So we've covered the good, positive characters, okay, in book 1, Canto 1. Now we're going to look at the villains. Now the first villain that we come across is Error. Now with regards to her description, as in the text, her physical features and everything, I'm going to deal with it as we progress through the video and we reach her portion. Okay, when we reach the part where Error and Red Cross Knight face each other, that part I will deal with her description. But here I would like to mention the description of her cave. You know, I think it's very important here to actually understand where does Error reside. In a very dark forest, she resides in a dark cave. So I think that it is a personal opinion and I thought that it would be nice to share it with you all because, I mean, why not? Literature is about interpretations, right? So, you know, the image of the cave that she resides in, this dark cave inside, it's even darker than the forest outside. So it reminded me of Plato's allegory of the cave. If you have read, there's a cave and there's like, in short, there's this shadows cast on the wall. From the outside, the shadows are cast on the wall and the prisoners are not aware of the outside world. They can only see the shadows. Now to them, to the prisoners, the shadows are their reality. They think that the shadows are the truth, but actually it's not. It is actually coming from outside, which they don't know. Okay, it's coming from the outside. So the shadows for them is reality, but that's actually an illusion, right? Because it's not the truth. So Error resides in this dark cave, okay? And you know, it reminded me of that because Plato's cave is always associated with illusion and ignorance. So I feel Error's den, the dark cave, is also symbolic of illusion and ignorance. Like, you know, when we make a mistake, when we error, no, it's in that dark cave in our mind, it stays, right, that we made a mistake. Then when we do it unknowingly, we know that, okay, we've made a mistake. And of course, even unknown errors have consequences. But knowingly, when we keep making mistakes, okay, when we keep erroring knowingly, then it hits a chord in the dark cave of the mind, it settles there, and then it does have consequences later, right? So I think that all of that is allegorically represented in Error. Her character and her description we'll see later, but the cave, I think it's that symbolic of that ignorance and deceit and this illusion, okay, that dark cave. So this is Error. Then we have Archimago. So Archimago is the villain, and he is introduced right in Canto 1, Book 1. And the literal meaning of his work is Arch-magician, Arch-imago, or Arch-image, Arch-imago. Okay, so Archimago. So Archimago is an evil sorcerer, okay? But when we first meet him, we see him as a genuine hermit, okay? He takes many forms, actually, not just a hermit. Like in as the book progresses, you'll see that he takes many forms. And then when we first meet him, he seems to be very genuine. Red Cross Knight even goes with Una to his house, okay? He seems to be that genuine. But after going to his house, we realize that he has sinister motives, okay? He conjures up spirit and etc, etc, tries to actually separate Red Cross Knight and Una, tries to bring about problems between them, misunderstandings between them. So he has sinister motives. Now, what is the allegory of Archimago? So on the one hand, he is representative of deceit. He is actually a troublemaker of sorts, okay? So he is deceitful, he is corrupt, okay? His mind is very sinister. But also Archimago is actually symbolic. I mean, Edmund Spenser, if you know the history of Edmund Spenser and his life, he was a follower of the Anglican Church, and he was against the Roman Catholic Church at the time, okay? So he was very critical of the Roman Catholic Church. He saw it as a seat of corruption. So at that time, there was Pope Clement VII, and Archimago was actually intended by Spenser to represent Pope Clement the Seventh and the hypocrisy, okay, of the Catholic Church, according to Spenser. So Spenser created Archimago, right, in order to criticize the Catholic Church. Like, you know, he's trying to say that, oh, okay, you like, it seemed to be very genuine, but when he entered the house, there was a lot of corruption, a lot of deceit. So this is Edmund Spenser, okay, his criticism through the Faerie Queene. So this is what the allegory is, okay, of the Faerie Queene over here as far as Archimago is concerned. Now we will look at the third villain that we come across, and that's Morpheus. Now Morpheus in legends, okay, he is the god of sleep. Now Morpheus, if you have watched the series on Netflix, The Sandman, there's a Netflix which is based on comic book series, okay. The comic book series is called The Sandman, and then Netflix made a series on it, based on it, so it is called The Sandman. There too, the Sandman is Morpheus, the god of dreams, the god of sleep. So is sleeping bad? No, we need sleep to actually conserve energy. Is dreaming bad? No, but daydreaming is, and oversleeping is, laziness is. So, you know, sleep is not bad, but in the Faerie Queene, for the purpose of this book, allegorically, Morpheus has been villainized. Allegory over here would be that laziness, okay? So Archimago's spirits try to actually wake up Morpheus. They keep poking him, telling him to wake up, trying to find ways to wake him up, but he doesn't wake up. Even when he does wake up, again he falls back to sleep soon. So, you know, oversleeping, laziness is bad. So, you know, these are the villains that we encounter in Canto 1. So now we'll dive deep right into the story, and we're going to move past it very shortly, very crisply, and very fast, okay? So let's just look at what the story is about now that we've understood the symbols. Okay, so the first book of the Faerie Queene, Canto 1. Now, before we begin with the Canto 1, there's an invocation in the beginning, okay? And in that invocation, you can read it on your own. All you have to remember is Spenser himself mentioned the reason behind him writing the Faerie Queene. So he says, fierce wars and faithful love shall moralize my song. So his intention is to moralize his song. He wants this piece of work to actually to deliver moral lessons. So Spenser himself had mentioned his intention, okay, in the invocation. So you read the invocation on your own. Now on the screen you can see that it's book 1, canto 1, and there's like 4 lines, a small 4 lines in the beginning. The patron of true holiness, and then it ends with home entreat. So what are these lines? Every book, okay, has these 4 lines, okay, in the beginning. Every book has these 4 lines, and I'll just check. I think that every canto has these 4 lines as well, and the intention of these 4 lines is to actually give like a summary. They're telling the readers what the canto 1 covers, okay. So for example, let me just find that out. I'm referring to my, yeah, so canto 2. So each canto also has these introductions. So you have in canto 2 there'll be 4 lines which will tell you what the canto is about. So in canto 1 we have 4 lines which is telling us what is the canto about. So the patron of true holiness, that is the Red Cross Knight. Foul error does defeat. So he defeats error. Hypocrisy, that is Archimago. Him to entrap, tries to entrap him. Does to his home entreat. So hypocrisy calls him to his home. Deceit calls him to his home. So this is what canto 1 is about. Now I did not cover the first 3 stanzas of canto 1, because in the first 3 stanzas, the first 2 deals with Red Cross Knight and his description, okay, what the Red Cross Knight is about, who is he about, and it gives us about that whole Red Cross and the why is he called the Red Cross Knight and everything, okay. It's his description. The 3rd stanza tells us there's a mention of Queen Gloriana, okay, who sends him on his errand, and the glory of Queen Gloriana, everything is described there. You can read it on your own. In the 4th and 5th in this slide, as you can see, it is a description of Una. So when you come to Una, just for example, I've given it here, that even for the Red Cross Knight, even for all the other characters, you have to mark as to what are the things you have to remember. What was she riding? She was upon a lowly ass, more white than snow. Then what was she like? She was pure, she was innocent, okay. Then she had every virtue in him. She was very virtuous, okay. And then she came from a royal lineage. So these are the underlining things that you have to do to remember, okay. So she is the embodiment of maidenly virtue, okay. She is the embodiment of truth, of maidenly virtue. So this is the description of Una. Now I have given this here as an example because I expect that in every character sketch that you do, you underline the things that you can enter in your answers as far as the characters are concerned, okay. So this is what you have to remember. Now we'll go into the story itself. So we are going to cover the story from the part where they enter the forest. From there we are going to go continuously. They're on this adventure. Like I said, they are going towards Una's kingdom to actually defeat that dragon, and on this adventure they come across a dark forest, okay, the wandering wood. So we are going to now progress the story from the wandering wood, okay. So they've already left, okay, Queen Gloriana's kingdom, going towards Una's kingdom and in fairyland. So now what happens is that they come across a forest, and in this forest, after certain episodes, they're going to encounter error. So let's get right into that. So now we're going to move on, and we have reached part 6, stanza 6, 7 and 8. Now what you have to remember here is stanza 6 deals with the dwarf and his description. Like I have mentioned, he says that there was a dwarf which did lag. That lassie seemed in being ever last. That is, he was lagging slowly, and he was catching up to them. Or wearied with bearing of her bag of needments at his back. So he was carrying Una's bag. So, you know, truth's bag, in which there are truth's requirements. Una's needments, requirements are in that bag. And this common sense is carrying truth's bag. Common sense is carrying Una's bag. So common sense and truth, they have to complement each other, right? They go together. So therefore he was carrying her bag. Then it says that it was almost as if God Jupiter was so angry that a perfect day suddenly was overcast and torrential rain poured down, and they had to search for a shelter where they can hide. They wanted a place where they can take shelter from the rain, and that's where they see the forest, okay, this dark shady grove where The trees were so high. This is mentioned in stanza 8, that enfrost to seek some covert nigh at hand, a shady grove not far away they spied. So they saw a shady grove not far from where they were, and they had to take shelter there. So in the rest of stanza 7, they are saying what the grove was like. It was with tall trees whose branches and leaves were so wide that even heaven's light could not penetrate them. So stanza 8 then goes on to describe the types of trees that grow there. So stanza 8 is not that important, but what is important is stanza 6 and stanza 8. Stanza 6 and stanza 7. So stanza 6 is about the dwarf and how it started raining, and then they took shelter in the forest. Stanza 7 tells us that this forest, it was so thick in its foliage that even light could not penetrate it. So heaven's light cannot penetrate it. So what do you have to understand from this? There's a sense of foreboding, right? There's a sense of mystery. There's this sense of evil because heaven's light cannot penetrate this forest. So there's this evil foreboding, this foreboding from before that something bad might happen. So, so this is what you have to understand from this part. Now let's move on further. Now let's look at stanza 9, 10 and 11. Now for the purpose of the story, we're following a story, a journey, right? So for the summary, stanza 11 is not that important. Stanza 9 is not that important. Stanza 10 and 11 is important. Stanza 9 is about the type of trees that grow in this wood, okay, in the shady grove, the type of trees that grow there and what they're related to. So you can read that on your own. Stanza 10 is about how they lose their way in the wood, okay, and stanza 11 is how they end up in Error's cave, okay, how do they come about that cave. Now before we get into that, let's just look at stanza 10 in detail. So led with delight they thus beguile the way until the blustering storm is overblown, when weening to return whence they did stray, they cannot find that path which was first was shown. So what happened? They were delighted, they were happy, they were not sad in this dark grove, in this shady forest. They were not happy, they were not sad, they were really happy. They were on a journey, on an adventure, they were happy. But they were wandering in the forest, they were wandering about till the storm was overblown, till the storm ended. Now after the storm ended, they decided that okay, enough, the storm has ended, now let's go back from where we had come, because our main motive is to go to Una's kingdom. So they decided that okay, let's turn back, let's go find the path we came back from. But when they were trying to search for the path that they were coming back from, they could not find it. They were literally lost because they were wandering about, so they were lost. So, but wandered to and fro in ways unknown, furthest from end then when they nearest ween. So, they were going to and fro, seeing here and there, could not find the path. So many paths, so many turnings seen, that which of them to take in divers doubt they been. So they were seeing so many, they were like, they were moving around in circles. They saw so many paths, whichever path they were taking, they came back to the same place, that kind of a scenario. And they did not know which path to take. At last, after so much of trying, they said, okay, resolving forward still to fare, resolving that okay, we have to move onward because there's no other way out, let's just move onward till that some end they find, or in or out. So they said okay, there's no other way, so let's just see any path through which we can come in or out. Let's just go and find one and we'll stick to it. Okay, that path they take, that beaten seemed most bare. So they decided to take the road which most people had trodden. Like, if it's a grass, if many people step on the grass, it flattens, right? So they picked out a road which seemed that many people must have traveled through it. And they said that, okay, we'll go through this. At length it brought them to a hollow cave. So you see, to a hollow cave, hollow, error, it's hollow, right? From inside, it's not deep, there's no depth in it, it's hollow. So they, at length, it brought them to a hollow cave amid the thickest woods. Okay, so what happens is, they come to this cave and the Red Cross Knight dismounts from his horse and he strives to go in. Okay, he gives his spear to the dwarf to hold for some time and he says, okay, I'm gonna go in. Now we're going to move on further. Now, as you come to this cave, you see that Una is quite concerned. Okay, she is giving a warning to the Red Cross Knight that do not enter the cave. So she's saying, "Be well aware," quoth then that laddie mild. So the laddie mild is Una, and she's quoting. She's saying that, "Be well aware. Okay, don't enter, lest sudden mischief ye to rash provoke. The danger hid, the place unknown and wild, breeds dreadful doubts. Often fire is without smoke." So she's saying that because of your rashness, you might end up making a mistake. You might provoke a mischief. You might end up making a mistake because you're acting too rashly. So wait and think. Don't just go in like that. Then she's saying that all dangers are not visible. Some dangers are hidden as well. So you need to be aware. You need to observe. You need to wait and observe, and then be aware of what are the possibilities. Don't just act rashly. And then she says, often fire is without smoke as well. So she's telling him that wait, don't act rashly. And peril, laddie, said he. What she's saying, what the Red Cross Knight is replying to her and saying, laddie, shame were to revoke the forward footing for and hidden shade. So he's saying that it would be a shame for me to turn back now. I'm a knight. I will face danger head on. It would be a shame for me to turn back now. Virtue gives herself light, that is virtue. If you're a virtuous person, a man's character, his true intentions, his pure intentions, will give herself light. That is, will light the way, will pave the way, will shed light, even in the darkness for to wait. So even in darkness, a person's virtue, a person's good intentions is going to light the way. So he's saying that I can't turn back now, I'm gonna go forward. Now we come to errors part. Okay, so in this part, in stanza number 13, she's saying, okay, yeah, but quoth she, that is Una is replying, the peril of this place I better wot than you. So she's saying, I know the shortcomings of this place. I know the truth of this place. I know the challenges of this place better than you. And she's saying, though now too late to wish you back return with foul disgrace, yet wisdom warns whilst foot is in the gate to stay the step or faced to retreat. Okay, so what she's saying that I know the dangers of this place better than you. Okay, and I also understand that it would be a shame for you to turn back. I know, I sympathize with you that you cannot turn back now. But true wisdom right now would say that when you're at the gate, okay, when you're at the border, okay, the wise thing to do is to actually observe first what you're getting into, rather than rashly getting into and then regretting. It's no point regretting. You give it a good thought, and then it's not about shame, but wisdom over here is about the well-being, right? The wisdom over here would be that you take a thorough check and then enter if you think you can handle it, but don't just enter rashly and then regret that, okay, I shouldn't have done it, So this is what she's saying. And then this is the wandering wood, this error's den. So we have the mention of error. This is error's den. In the wandering wood, this is error's den, wandering wood. A monster vile whom God and man does hate. Therefore, I read, beware. Fly, fly, quoth then the fearful dwarf. So you see, the dwarf is following common sense, okay? It's telling him, fly, fly, okay? This is no place for living men. So, the truth of the place is that it's a bad place. And common sense, okay, the sixth sense, the common sense is telling you, don't go, fly, get away, don't do it, okay? Now it's up to the Red Cross Knight, okay? If he, after his common sense has warned him, after faith has warned him, after truth has warned him, if he goes into it, then the responsibility is his, okay? The warnings have come, now the responsibility is his. So in stanza 14, but full of fire and greedy hardiment, the youthful knight could not for aught be stayed. So he was very adamant that he's going to go for it. So he could not be stayed, like he could not be restrained. He had to go, okay. But forth unto the darksome hole he went and looked in. His glistening armor made a little glooming light, much like a shade, by which he saw the ugly monster plain. So when he entered the cave, there's comparative light outside. So from his armor, the light shone. A little bit of light, it reflected in the cave and it fell on the monster, okay. it fell on Error, it fell on the monster, and then he could see the monster through that light. Okay, now here also, to me, this is again a personal opinion, isn't it symbolic? The armor which bears the red cross, even in darkness, it kind of shed a light and it gave him visibility. He was able to see Error. So, you know, he knows that it's a monster. He knows this is Error. He knows that he has errored. Okay, his error was he acted rashly. So now he has to face Error. Okay, so isn't it symbolic that armor kind of, even in the darkness, shone the light and it made Error visible to him. So there's still chance for him to redeem himself. Still chance for him to save himself, Una, and the dwarf that is with him. So but he says that this monster had a serpent's tail, of course, but the other was a woman. She was half woman. Okay, most loathsome, filthy, foul, and full of vile disdain. So we have now encountered Error. Now let's see what happens when he comes face to face into the conflict with Error. Now let's look at Error and her description. Okay, in stanza 15, and as she lay upon the dirty ground, so the ground was dirty, and as she lay upon it, her huge long tail, her den all overspread. So her tail, it actually encompassed the whole den. It was that big. Okay, yet was in knots and many bouts upwound. So her tail was not a plain tail, it was actually in knots. So this is also highly symbolic. You know, we say that in order to cover up one lie, you have to say 1,000 lies. So you're one lie after lie after lie after lie, and it gets complicated. So the knots in her tail is like similar to that, you know, Error. It's just knots, it gets complicated, you understand? So she has knots. Okay, and then she says that it says here that pointed with mortal sting. So the end of her tail has a deadly sting. Okay, of her there bred 1,000 young ones which she daily fed. So there were 1,000 young ones and she fed them daily, sucking upon her poisonous dugs. So her breasts were poisonous and they were sucking off of her like that, and each one of sundry shapes. So they're not all the same shapes. Error can be of different types, right? There are many types of errors. So all of them of sundry shapes, yet all ill-favored. So what she's saying is that they are of different shapes, but all of them are ugly to look at, in the sense they're ill-favored. They're not pleasant looking. They're not pleasant things at all. Soon as that uncouth light upon them shone, the moment the armor, right, the Red Cross Knight's armor, the light shone upon them, they disappeared. They went into Error's mouth, their mother's mouth, and they disappeared. Okay, so this is a very unsettling image of Error and her offspring. Now let's move on. The damn upstart out of her den afraid. So what happened? She gets startled. She's like, where's this light coming from? And she sprints out of her cave. Okay, and rushed forth hurling her hideous tail. So her hideous tail was in knots. Now it opened wide. Okay, and she rushed out. About her cursed head whose folds displayed, as in they were knotted and now they are not knotted anymore. Okay, was stretched now forth at length without entail. She looked about, and seeing one in mail armed to point, sought back to turn again. So she got out of her cave and she's searching everywhere that where is this coming from, where's this light coming from, and then she turns and she sees this man, okay, in this knight in shining armor, quite literally, and then she attempts to go back into her cave again because she does not like light. She hates light. Okay, and she wants to go back into the darkness of a cave again. For light she hated as the deadly bale. I won't in desert darkness to remain, where plain none might her see, nor she any plain. So she likes to stay in the darkness where nobody will see her, and she also will not see anybody. Okay, so that's her domain. So this is about Error. In stanza 17, you can read it on your own. Okay, so it's basically about her and Red Cross Knight only. It's just extended. You can read that on your own. We'll move on further. So what Spenser was doing here is, see, in stanza 17 and 18, which we are going to do now, in both of these scenes he's actually depicting the fight between Error and the Red Cross Knight. So Red Cross Knight in stanza 17 is able to wound Error. Okay, in stanza 18 she tries to retaliate back. Okay, so all of that you can read on your own. what is important is this last line in stanza 18. God help the man so wrapped in error's endless train. Now, I've mentioned it before also that Spenser had said that his intention for the Faerie Queene was to moralize my song. So he's saying that I would want to convey a moral message, moral lesson through the Faerie Queene. So this is one of them. God help the man so wrapped in error's endless train. That if a person continuously errors, if a person does not have any sense of judgment, is so ignorant and so in illusion and delusion also, that he keeps making mistakes, then God is the only one that can help him come out of it. Okay, so in stanza 19, his lady now Una now tells him, Una, truth is the one who's by holiness's side. Now truth tells him that now sir knight, shew what ye be, you know, show who you are, you know, you are holiness and I am by your side. Truth is by his side, warning him, telling him, advising him, guiding him. Now she's saying, show what true holiness is about, show who you are. And she's saying that add faith unto your force, you know, she's truth. So she's saying have faith. She's telling holiness that you have faith and fight her off. And then she's saying that be not faint, strangle her, else she sure will strangle thee. So what she's saying is, you know, you strangle her, otherwise error will definitely strangle you, because errors have consequences. So you strangle her, otherwise you're going to be entrapped by error, this constant complications that arise from repeated mistakes, repeated lies, being bad, you understand? So he's saying you strangle her, otherwise she will definitely strangle you and entrap you. So you strangle her first. So he's able to break free one of his hands. He's able to break free from her grip, and then he actually catches her throat. He actually catches her throat and he squeezes it so hard that filth and vomit comes out of her mouth. He squeezes it so badly that she vomits out things. Okay, and amongst the things that she pukes out, the most important is her vomit full of books and papers was. This is in stanza 20. She pukes out these books and papers. Now what do they symbolize? These are the polemic verses and those theological verses which Spenser saw as brainwashing, which he thought was false and corrupt. So he's referring to those verses which actually played with the minds of the people. So it was about false books and false theories and false verses and false theologies. Okay, so he's symbolizing that. So now let's move on further. Now there's a reference to the river Nile in the Faerie Queene in stanza 21. Okay, now what happens is, you just imagine flood waters. When a flood comes, it carries with it a lot of things. Okay, in the water, in the flood water, as it's passing through its path, it carries along with it stone, gravel, mud. It also carries along with it waste materials. Okay, so if you have witnessed, when flood waters retreat back, when they die down and they retreat back, you will see that on the road there are many plastic packets or maybe bottles or waste materials which it had carried along the way, and it just deposits. The moment the water recedes, it deposits wherever it is. So one such thing which he's referring to, Edmund Spenser is referring to here, is like the river Nile when it swells. That is when it overflows the banks and it becomes like a flood, overflowing and spreading out into the land. When it retreats back, it leaves on the ground, it leaves back the mud. And in that mud, because of germs, right, in that mud, many creatures, they breed and they birth and they breed. Okay, many creatures breed in that mud water, on that mud. Okay, similarly, errors, okay, in that the vomit and everything that had come out, there were many creatures around him like that was breeding. Okay, and he was completely disgusted and irritated with it. Okay, and from her store, she even let out serpents. Okay, this is in stanza number 22. So she poured forth out of her hellish sink. So from her store, she actually let out more serpents, small creatures, foul, black as ink, okay, which were coiling around the Red Cross Knight's leg. And now he was not being able to take the smell. He was not being able to he was almost being overpowered by error, and error was witnessing, okay, that he was almost going to give up. So you see, holiness was being overpowered by error. So now he has to have true faith to actually break free of that tangle, right? So we're going to see how he's going to do that. Now what happens is, you know, the Red Cross Knight, if you see stanza 24, you will see that he is very fearful of shame. He doesn't care about the monster much, but he is afraid of the shame that he will encounter if he loses this fight. So then of the certain peril he stood in, half furious until unto his foe he came. So he was half furious because he knew that there are chances that he might lose. So half furious, okay, whatever he's got, he went towards error. Okay, this is his like last fight. Okay, he's not gonna back down. So he charges towards error, and resolved in mind all suddenly to win or soon to lose before he once would lin. So he's saying that, okay, it's a do or die situation. Either I will win or I will lose, but I'm gonna go for it. Then he says, and struck at her with more than manly force, that from her body full of filth sin. So, you know, with a lot of force he struck her, okay, and he reft her hateful head without remorse. Without remorse, he cut off her head, okay. He's done. He killed her, okay. A stream of coal black blood forth gushed from her course. So, you know, like when she's vanquished, she's devoured. Now there's blood that's oozing out of her, coming out of her, and it's coal black in color. Her scattered brood soon as the parent deer, they saw so rudely falling to the ground. You know, her brood, her young ones, the creatures, the moment they saw their mother falling down, their parent falling down, they got scared. That what do we do? What do we do? Okay. Groaning full deadly, all with troublous fear, gathered themselves about her body round, weening their wonted entrance to have found at her wide mouth. Okay, so what happens is, remember in the first part where they gathered entrance through her mouth, when the Red Cross Knight's armor shone upon error to take shelter, they took entry from her mouth. Here too, after she fell, they were searching for her mouth, where to enter from. But now that she's dead, they saw that it's not there. So but being there withstood, they flocked all about the bleeding wound and sucked up their dying mother's blood, making her death their life, and eke her hurt their good. So what happens is, they suck her blood and her death becomes her life. So basically, Error is dead, but you know, she's bred so many other creatures. She has bred so many offsprings that they continue to live, and even if she dies, her death, Error is dead, but her blood is nourishment for them. You understand? Her remembrance, her former existence, okay, still lurks in their existence, so they remember her. The blood is nourishment for them. So her offsprings, you know, they're still doing the dirty deeds, but you know, consequences, they drink up, they perform so much of Error, they drink up so much of the blood that they burst and then they die. So Error dies, and soon after her offspring also do die. So the bellies swell up and then they die. Okay, so let's just move on to the last part of Error's encounter with the Red Cross Knight. Now, stanza 26, okay, talks about the part where Error's offspring dies. 27 talks about how Una praises the Red Cross Knight, okay. So she says, his laddie, seeing all that chanced from far, approached him, okay. So she saw it from afar, and then she approached him, and then there are words of praise that she gives him, okay. So she says that you have great glory won this day and proved your strength on a strong enemy, your first adventure. So remember, this is the Red Cross Knight's first adventure. Many such I pray and henceforth ever wish, that like succeeded it may. That just like you've won over this adventure, you may succeed in the other adventures that are to come as well. Now in stanza 28, it's just a continuation that finally they found a way out of the wood, and then forward on his way with God to friend, he passed forth and with new adventures sought. So he's searching for new adventures. Long way he traveled before he heard of aught. So what happened is, he now is marching forward. He and Una and the dwarf managed to find their way out of the wood, and now they're seeking for the or preparing or moving towards the adventures that are to come. Now let's move on to Archimego. Okay, so guys, what I have decided to do is I'm dividing my presentation into two parts. So this is part one, where I have ended with Red Cross Knight's defeat of Error. So we've ended with part one. I'm going to upload a video right after this which is part 2 of this video itself. In that video, I am going to deal with Archimago. I'm going to continue the story and we're going to look at Archimago's part. So with these two, part 1 and part 2 videos, you're going to be done with book 1, Canto 1. So make sure you check out the other video as well. Now, till we meet again, love all things literature, more power to you, and may you always stay healthy and happy. See you in the next one.